We are witnessing history right now, and XRP is looking primed to blast right through its previous all-time high. And this is happening as the Fed's no-limit payment system, FedWire, has now officially gone live on and adopted the ISO 222 standard. This has created a lot of buzz among XRP investors and has many people speculating that the XRPL will even replace SWIFT. So I'll be explaining what this means and how it will affect all ISO 222 compliant tokens like XRP. Not only this, but the Board of Governors for the Federal Reserve have now given the green light for banks to custody crypto. This is going to open the corridor for trillions of dollars to enter the space and for banks to now start selling those services as crypto, and more specifically, stablecoins have become very successful business models. While at the same time, BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager with $11.6 trillion in assets under management, just announced that their most profitable ETF in history is now Bitcoin, their IBIT ETF, and how this is just a precursor to what happens next for XRP. And now we have the head of crypto at the White House, David Sachs, who made a public appearance where he announced that the Genius Act is all but to pass soon. Even though we ran into a few hurdles today, this is likely going to get passed with amendments, unlocking trillions more in institutional capital sitting on the sidelines that will have the full support of not only the US Treasury, the SEC, but now also the Fed. And this is huge because right now, the TVL, or total value locked in all of crypto market DeFi, is only $125 billion, while the stablecoin market cap is sitting at about $258 billion for a total of not even $400 billion. However, this will quickly change over the next 5 years as we see trillions more enter the market, first through stablecoins, and then much of that will find its way into the top cryptos. So buckle up, folks. We have a lot to cover. And if you're an XRP investor and the price of XRP is anywhere under $3.40, which is the prior all-time high price we logged back in January, then you're still very early. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what happens next. So whether you're feeling FOMO right now because you missed the most recent pump, maybe you've been waiting to get into XRP and waiting for even a potential pullback in this move, but you're feeling extreme amounts of FOMO, or simply trying to add to your XRP position, I'll be sharing some solid entry points and what to look out for on the charts before we blast off to new all-time highs and potentially even a $10 to $11 target, which I've been talking about for quite some time, and it looks like it might just happen this time around. I'll also be sharing some common pitfalls many investors fall into along the way that will wreck their chances and gains. Also, be sure to register for our live event happening July 20th through the 22nd, where we'll be teaching you how to safely turn your crypto that you've been holding as a portfolio into passive daily cash flow, no matter what the market condition is, whether we're in a bull market or a bear market. This entire live event, which is absolutely free, is going to be your ticket to freedom. That said, here is a quick video that explains a bit more about what's going on.
Hey, what's up, my friend? Nick here. Quick heads up for all you smart investors watching this. If you love to see your crypto actually working for you, earning passive income every single day on your coins, we're putting together something really cool. On July 20th, we're running our first ever free online event challenge. It's called the Crypto Passive Cash Flow Challenge. And it's basically 3 days where you'll learn our DeFi strategies we use to safely earn passive yield on our coins 24/7, even while we sleep. And some people are doing crazy numbers with this strategy alone. And if you had some coins that you're just holding on to, you should join us and discover how to put them to work. We've never done anything like this publicly before, and we probably won't ever do it again. So it's completely free, but we might have to limit spots to keep the quality high and give everyone proper attention with the size of our YouTube channel, over 360,000 subscribers now. So if you want in, just click the link below this video, grab your spot while you can, and now back to the video.
So be sure to click that link that starts with rebrand.ly, very first link in the description, or in the pinned comment down below to register. You've got to do that soon because this is a live event and spots are limited. Limited. And as always, if you're feeling blessed and bullish, comment 777. And if you're going to be the wealthiest person in your family tree, smash the subscribe button. Hello and welcome back to the channel, my friend. If you're new here, my name is Paul, and you can find me on Twitter or X at PauliDeFi, PauliDeFi. That said, I want to cover the Genius Act and David Sachs in particular on his statements surrounding what this is going to do for the United States and more specifically for the crypto market moving forward, as he is the crypto czar over at the White House. We're going to cover this. We're going to cover the legislator, what recently happened, which is a bit of a minor setback, but how it won't really affect the general outcome moving forward. So let's have a listen and how this is all going to affect the price of XRP.
Stablecoins really have the potential to ensure American dollar dominance internationally, to increase the usage of the U.S. dollar digitally as the world's reserve currency, and in the process create potentially trillions of dollars of demand for U.S. treasuries, which could lower long-term interest rates.
Now, earlier this morning, the Senate was due to vote on these bills and the Genius Act, as even President Trump stated, "Happy Crypto Week. The House will soon vote on a tremendous bill to make America the undisputed #1 leader in digital assets." However, the bill actually failed to pass, and many of its key proponents or supporters were stating that it actually allowed for a back door for the government to use CBDCs. And again, as you remember, Trump and this administration, and better yet, just anyone who has a brain, should be against central bank digital currencies, as it will create an era of complete and total financial control for the Federal Reserve. In other words, we would be financially enslaved more than we already are using one thing called the US dollar. But CNBC recently reported on this outcome.
Hey, Kelly. So yes, this House was just holding a procedural vote that would have then led to the vote on 3 different crypto bills, and that procedural vote has failed. Now, we should note, of course, here that rule was not just on crypto bills. It was also going to set up a vote on funding for the Defense Department. We're trying to learn a little bit more about why the bill went down, but this definitely puts a wrinkle into House Republicans' plan to have this crypto week where they were going to pass crypto bills. You have to get that process vote in place to actually move on to the other votes. One of the members who did vote against the process, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, actually tweeted a bit this morning, voicing some of her concerns with the bill in relation to a central bank digital currency. She was concerned that the bills did not do enough to prevent that from being created by the U.S. government, saying that more oversight was needed. Of course, we'll be speaking with more of these lawmakers who voted against the bill to better understand their concerns, how many of them had to do with crypto versus defense. But again, this is a huge wrinkle. There were a lot of folks, crypto industry, lawmakers, who were expecting these bills to get done this week. It now looks like Republican leaders might need to go back to the drawing board to figure out how to get this done.
So although these bills failed to pass, this is key priority #1 for the administration currently, as apparently the bills are still alive and another vote is scheduled for later this afternoon. So it looks like they're working rapidly to pass this thing. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments what's going to happen for crypto markets if these things pass. Will they rally, or will it be a big nothing burger where we're going to have to wait many more weeks or even potentially months for this thing to pass? Either way, eventually I do believe we are going to get some sort of a stablecoin bill, which is going to create an explosion in demand in the markets, whether that is using the RLUSD stablecoin, whether that's using USDC, USDT, whatever the case may be. More money is going to flow into the crypto market, creating more demand for stablecoins, and ultimately a lot of that value is going to find its way onto the ledgers or the cryptos that are servicing those L1 blockchains. RLUSD has consistently been climbing, and as you can see, this is the stablecoin from Ripple, where now it is sitting at a $517 million market cap. This thing is only going to continue to grow as we have the Genius Act. And what's really interesting is you can see that on the volume for the 24-hour period, we're sitting at $76 million used. In other words, this stablecoin is truly being used at about 1/3 of the total market cap, or excuse me, 1/5 of the total market cap in this situation. So this is actually a lot of usage for a stablecoin that is actually pretty small in its market cap, but I expect to thoroughly continue growing, which is going to build more demand for the XRP token. Moving on, BlackRock now has announced that the Bitcoin ETF they hold, IBIT, or basically sell, is now the company's most profitable ETF. Let's have a listen to that latest announcement from Bloomberg.
Let's hone in on the Bitcoin and Ether for a minute here. And since the rally has been all the news today, it's showing in the flows. I think the ETFs have been part of the rally. If you look, this shows the spot Bitcoin ETFs, and here's the spot Ether. So Ether's smaller, but definitely it's trending up. But look at the Bitcoin ETFs. They've taken in $50 billion since they came out. So they came out in January. They had 28 because GBTC was a conversion. Now all the way up there, $155 billion in assets. IBIT more than half. Now the 20th biggest ETF overall, 7th biggest for BlackRock, and most profitable for BlackRock. So 300% return since the ETF was filed 2 years ago, Scarlett. And boom, what an explosion of growth.
And although that's obviously referring to the IBIT or Bitcoin ETF, I think this is a precursor to what happens next for Ripple and the XRP token, especially with the price explosion that we recently experienced and how well this thing is likely going to perform, is going to see a lot of demand from institutional players, and they're going to want it in the ETF form. That said, even over on Polymarket, we're sitting at an 84% odds. In other words, the betting market believes that there's an 84% chance that a Ripple ETF will be approved in 2025, and this will make the price skyrocket just on the news alone. So again, even though right now ETFs are continuing to grow, XRP doesn't currently have an ETF, it's likely going to. We're likely going to get the Genius Act. It's not a question of if, but when. Well, now we even have US regulators, or better yet, the Federal Reserve, giving the green light for all banks who have master accounts over at the Federal Reserve to custody crypto. They still warn them that they have the full liability of being custodians to crypto. However, this is a landmark move. The Federal Reserve, FDIC, and OCC just released this joint guidance. And essentially what this means is that banks now have the go-ahead to service customers when it comes to crypto. And again, a lot of people want to just continue to stick with their banks. The question is, will they offer new products or just allow people to start to toss their crypto into their banks? And the answer is obviously going to be yes, especially when you have something like the IBIT ETF consistently growing and becoming more profitable. Every bank is taking note and noticing and saying we would be foolish to not offer crypto custody for our clients. And right here is the statement if you want to go ahead and pause this video and read through it yourself. And finally, for our final piece of news, before we dive into the charts for a bit, the Federal Reserve Financial Services directly over on X posted prepare to go live with ISO 222 on the FedWire Fund service, which happened July 14th. Just a day ago. And this is kind of the moment that everyone has been waiting for. Now, the difference between FedNow and the FedWire is that the FedNow was designed for transactions with a $500,000 per transaction limit. In other words, this was for consumer payments, person to person, or small business deals, whereas FedWire is designed more for an institutional level where it was only available on the weekdays with no limit on the transactions. In other words, this was for larger wires and settlements and was to be adopted by July 14th. And if anyone remembers, this was supposed to happen in March of 2025, but it actually couldn't occur then. They had to push the date back. And now even Swift is going to be live on the ISO 222 messaging standard by November 2025. And so now that these major institutions are going to be able to use the FedWire on ISO 222, people have been speculating what's going to occur now that everything is being updated and the Fed is adopting this new technology and requiring it everywhere at a global level when you have a player like Ripple consistently taking business from Swift. That said, we had Brad Garlinghouse at Apex 2025 basically stating, and here's the video, although it's very loud, it was a live event, it was terrible audio, you can hear him say XRP could capture 14% of Swift volume in just just 5 years. They do transact in the tune of quadrillions of dollars. But again, just because they're moving quadrillions of dollars between banks, they take a very small fee or a portion of everything that they send. That said, that does not mean that it's going to be over 1,000 per token. And by the way, anything that Jack the Rippler posts, more often than not, is complete and total conjecture and speculation. So it's nice to get news sometimes, but understand that not everything you see online is 100% true. Just because it's moving this money does not mean that value is going to only be on the XRP token. XRP is simply going to be used as a means to an end, and a little bit of it will be used to send a transaction, which I do believe it is possible for XRP to capture 14% of that SWIFT volume in the next 5 years. That said, with the ISO 222 standard being live on FedWire, this ultimately is going to increase the scale at which banks and businesses can play, as global adoption is happening this year, 2025. Over 80% of transactions globally are going to be adopted on this standard, and how this also just allows for enhanced data capacity. The ISO 222 standard supports detailed data fields, making it easier to track payments, reduce fraud, and improve transparency in the payment process. By the way, this is exactly what blockchain does, but at a better scale and actually more affordable. So when we talk about XRP and the ISO 222 standard, just because a token is compliant, as you can see, these are the list of tokens that are compliant: XRP, Cardano, Quant, Algorand, so on and so forth. That does not mean that everything is going to move only on XRP or only on Quant. What this means is that these are tokens that can be moved on an ISO 222 standard. Okay, I can move XRP on the SWIFT system or on the FedWire system, but that doesn't mean I'm actually using the blockchain. So there's probably going to be some sort of an EVM compatibility there, or they are just going to take the token and make it one for one on that standard. Whatever the case may be, compliant tokens don't necessarily mean that it's actually going to be sent often. And if anything, it'd probably be better to just use XRP on the actual native platform it was designed for, XRPL, the ledger, which is far more fast. It's actually far more transparent. It's far more affordable. And ultimately, I think a lot of players are going to start to realize that if you truly want to upgrade your systems, you're going to adopt and use blockchain. And XRP, and better yet, the team at Ripple, are one of the best to work with. So either way, speculation and conjecture like this can lead into a price pump. If enough people believe that Ripple and XRP are going to play a pivotal role into this new ecosystem with ISO 222, FedWire, and SWIFT, they're going to buy into that news, driving up the price, even if not everything is 100% true. And ultimately, any holders are going to stand to benefit from that. And finally, what you've probably been waiting for is we are going to take a look at the XRP price chart and just give you some key targets to look out for, maybe points of resistance or even points of support in which you can actually buy into without feeling like you're FOMOing. That said, as you can see here, I was mentioning, especially if you were on our live calls over at Altcoin Pro University, how I was extremely bullish at any price above $2.33, which seemed to be a strong resistance going all the way back into essentially May of this year. That said, we actually put in a series of now a lowest low and then higher lows into higher highs. And again, we exploded to the upside on the breakout, where you can see that volume really expanded. And again, I teach volume inside of our Technical Analysis Essentials course, which is completely free for our Altcoin Pro University members. So that said, if you want to learn how to use volume and how to understand it and why it's so important as one of the best indicators on planet Earth, where you don't need much more, then go over to altcoinpro.com to check it out, or just register for this live event that we're hosting, which is absolutely free. That link is in the bio. But when we broke out right here, you can see that we squatted for just a very short period of time where volume started to expand. And not only did it expand to the upside quite tremendously, we pumped all the way to $3, where we saw a lot of profit taking. And you can see that is denoted by this huge red bar. At that point in time, we put put in some lows right here at about 266, and that seemed to be a pretty strong support. And you'll notice that even with that support and with all of that profit taking, it didn't take long for us to break right back above our prior range high of about 285, and that has now become our support. So you can see what used to be a resistance is now becoming a support, and we're putting in a series of what? Higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, and guess what likely happens next? Higher highs. So yes, I'm accumulating anywhere, even if we get a bit of volatility, anywhere between 285 all the way down to like 262. And the reason I'm accumulating down into that range, let me go ahead and remove those drawings right there, is because if you zoom out, you can see that this right here seemed to be a pretty strong support. So right now on a daily time frame, things are looking really good. And the reason I believe it's a strong support is because we saw a lot of resistance here. Again, what used to be a resistance now becomes a support. Back in March, again in March 19th, one last time in May, and when we broke out, we actually exploded and moved violently to the upside on increased and expanded volume. So even if we come right back down into this 260 range to 265, I'm a massive buyer there because it's going to be very difficult in this current market environment for it to break lower. And as you can see, whenever XRP really starts to move and expand on its volume, it pumps extremely hard. So right now, those are the areas I'm buying into. My first target's obviously going to be the prior all-time high of $3.39. And if you zoom out to a weekly time frame, you can see that right now we are breaking right back into this range on a weekly time frame for the very first time, really, aside from back here on our prior all-time high of 280. We're back above this range on a weekly time frame, and this leads me to believe that we're likely going in for some new all-time highs. So if I were to take a fib tool, I should say, from that top all the way to the bottom down here, let me go ahead and do that and touch as many points as possible minus this one severe breakdown, which actually ended up being the bottom of COVID. You can see that the 141 range is sitting at about 1150. So I think we could easily hit a $10 target this market cycle if things continue to look well for the crypto market, considering XRP has put in so much support for so many weeks here, going all the way back to December of 2024. We're into the middle of the summer and things are looking really hot, and it's rare that we get this much bullish price action this early into the market cycle. So that said, very bullish. I'm accumulating XRP. I'm not recommending that you do, but I do recommend that you pay attention to what happens next, and any break above that prior all-time high at 340 is going to be massively bullish for XRP, and you're not going to want to miss out. Thanks so much for watching this video, my friend. Be sure to click the link down in the description or the pinned comment below to register for our live video training session where we teach you how to put your crypto to work for you. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.